23rd, Planning Board session. I'd like to call it to order, and may we have a roll call, please?
Chair LaFaro.
Present.
Vice Chair Finnerty.
Present.
The Secretary is here. Board Member Catalinato.
Present.
Board Member Mutu.
Present.
Board Member Neely.
Present.
Board Member Fulham is absent. We have a quorum.
Great. Will you please join in for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Now, I know we're up to date on minutes.
Yes, Madam Chair, we have
What do we have?
January 12th and January 26th.
And 12 and 26.
I think it's February 9th. January 26th and February 9th. Yes, January 26th and February 9th.
Not the
Yeah,
12th.
I apologize. I had notes in between them, and I didn't, yes, at February 9th.
So Jan 26, February 9, may I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Dennis, second by
Second.
Craig, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 6 in favor, 1 absent.
It's bad when
Okay.
you can't read your own notes.
Yes, it is. So we will close the public day session and go into a work session for Key Capture Energy. Come on up to the table, please.
I'll be up there too, Jack, I'm just gonna do my thing here.
Okay, good.
You know, just to remind the board, if you have on the aerial here on West Montauk Highway in Hampton Bays, we did a pre-submission conference report on this, June.
It was June,
grab that
the last time we
mic,
did.
Okay.
Probably June
What's that, Charles?
We needed a
Sorry about that,
microphone.
Charles. The planning board did a pre-submission conference report for these two sites in the Highway Business Zoning District on West Montauk Highway for a battery storage facility. At the time, this was this little lopsided, this plan, but it was a substantial plan that included, and it still includes, a substation and overhead connection lines to the PSEG. At the time, the planning board adopted a pre-submission conference report. I forwarded it to everybody, and I have copies here today, that raised a number of issues pertaining to this project, which is the purpose of the pre-submission. The applicant then recently not made a formal submission, but submitted a revised site plan. Just to quickly show you side by side, I'll have them go through the details. But this is the new one here. Sort of hard to, but you can sort of see, it looks like they scaled down the footprint, and increased the buffers, substantially increased the buffers along here. And as for the additional details, I'll have them go through it with the board, but they wanted to present it to the board, you know, obviously what the changes were, and to get any other feedback or any other concerns, you know.
Do we have the pre-app report in here?
I had emailed it to everybody,
I
but
know, I didn't print it
but
out.
I do have.
Do you?
Yeah.
So good, Anthony. Okay, can you just identify yourself,
Sure.
please, for the
Uh,
record?
John Anzalone from Harris Beach PLLC, 333 Earl Ovington Boulevard, Suite 901, Uniondale, New York, 11553. Attorneys for the applicant. And beside me is Mr. Phil Denera of Key Capture Energy.
We remember. Yes, how are you? Good to see you again.
Thanks.
First, we want to thank you for the opportunity to present the revised changes since we last met in June. Since that time, we got the pre-submission report. Key Capture made a number of changes, some of which that Anthony just went through. First, the 69 kilovolt generation tie line between.
Just go slow so we
Sure,
can.
sure. So there's a 69 kilovolt tie line that runs between the substation that's being built by LIPA and the existing LIPA transmission line that runs along the MTA. And that originally was supposed to be above ground, as Anthony noted. It is now proposed, based on discussions with LIPA, they have allowed us to go underground. This eliminates the need for the overhead wire variance that we were previously seeking. That is now gone. It also allows us to eliminate the H-frames. The H-frames were 35 feet high and had 20-foot tall lightning masts on top of them, which creates an effective height of 55 feet. The lightning masts are now to the side, and the H-frame is gone. It's now a different type of substation equipment that actually goes down into the ground, so it's much lower. The lightning mast is still the highest item on the site. and they are at now 27 feet as opposed to 55 feet. So substantially lower than what was previously provided. Regardless, lightning masts are always required in connection with the utility scale BESS because they're necessary to protect the equipment from lightning. It's just part of the applicable safety standards that key capture has to meet. I think 27 feet is basically the minimum we're allowed to go.
Correct.
So going past that, obviously 27 feet, rather akin to a two-story building in terms of height. It's actually lower than many of the trees on the site already that will actually be preserved. As Anthony showed you, there's a substantial increase in the number of buffering. The front went from being 77 feet setback behind the existing buffering to now 116 feet. And that was, and in response to the planning board's request, we did a leaf-off visual rendering that we filed with Anthony. I'm not sure if you got it as part of your.
Well, I had forwarded whatever they sent, and I don't,
Sure.
But show me what you have, so we can take a look.
Sure. So we actually have, I have one for every member.
Okay.
Easier. All three of those, yeah. You want to go through, or you want to? Sure. All right. So, under the revised plan, you really don't see all that much. What you will see is you will see the, obviously, the sidewalk that's being added to the front. And over here, the wall doesn't go the whole length of the property, but there's
Where are you,
still.
on the front picture?
There's the front picture, yes. So over here, past the 40-mile-an-hour sign limit, you'll see a green wall that goes past, you'll see beyond the vegetation where it's a little sparse. That's the sound mitigation wall that is proposed, and that's still proposed at 12 feet. Was originally 77 feet setback, now it's supposed to be 116-foot setback.
You can hardly see it. Did you insert that, or do you have a?
That's inserted.
Did
That's
you?
inserted, yes.
Yeah,
That's
it's
a
Photoshop.
visual simulation, yes.
Right.
So you're saying the wall is still 12 feet high?
Yes.
It helps that the trees are turning brown in that section.
You can also see some of the wall over here, and you also see some of the clearing in this section over here. Although for most of the property, you're not going to see very much in this leaf-off condition. Again, the lightning masts are not really visible because they're set back a very great distance from the roadway and are lower than the height of the trees.
So the lightning rods are now what?
27 feet.
And where do they exist?
They are proposed in the substation, and,
Yeah, we got it.
yeah, so,
In the PSEG section?
they're, that's in both, right?
They're in both.
They're in both substations. So there's a project substation in the front, and then there's the LIPA substation in the back, which is why there's the subdivision component that's proposed, because
Can we
LIPA
see a copy?
is actually owning
Can you
that
give the planning
substation.
board these?
Sure, absolutely.
So in response to your comments, we obviously, as John noted, have gone underground with the connection to LIPA's existing overhead transmission easement. And then, you all had expressed concern with the height of the 55-foot lightning mast. So at the time, there were 4 lightning masts proposed in what will be LIPA's substation and another 3 in our project substation. Alternatively, instead of at a height of 55 feet, we're able to bring those down to 27 feet. Requires more of them, but dropping them down, we are able to lower the height of those.
You don't have any other visualization, right? Any drawn plans or, not that? That doesn't tell us very much.
Of the substation equipment?
Yeah,
I don't have anything offhand today. From the visualizations that we provided, you're obviously not going to see it from any public view shed, but we can certainly provide you.
you didn't do a computer simulation with showing this?
So you
Well-
mean on-site, if we were seeing if you were standing, say roughly here?
Yeah, at ground level,
At ground level in the project site?
or from wherever.
I think,
You know, there's some pretty sophisticated, advanced computer modeling now where you get a real sense of what this project is gonna look like, so that's what I'm asking.
Well,
you,
that's
if you
what
had
we
any.
did. We did a full simulation of what the project will look like from any public vantage point, and this is the result that shows that those lightning masts or the substations
Right.
would not be visible from any public view shed.
If I may, just so I could interject, Just to remind the board, so yes, it was reduced from the 55 feet to the 27 feet. It's going to require, as he said, more of them. But just for the record, the way the code reads is that it says the highest, structural component of the battery storage facility is 20 feet. So for the record, I think this still has to go to the zoning board of appeals.
It does.
So not
It
complying
does.
with
Yes.
the standards.
It does.
Same thing with the 12-foot.
Yes,
wall.
exactly.
Okay, so I just want to get that.
Did you say the wall's now been moved back?
It's been
From
moved
the
back.
original?
Originally it was 77 feet from the roadway. It's now 116 feet from the roadway.
Okay.
Okay, and the clearing. And the setback on the east property is difficult to read, is remains?
The east, to the residence to what would be the west, it would be, it's now 180 feet approximately,
Right.
and originally it was 87 feet.
And the east side, which is the car,
The car wash is the same,
It's
Same as
39 feet,
yeah, car wash has not been changed.
39.767 feet to the fence line.
So is it still your intention to carve out a piece and sell it to PSEG?
It's not sold to PSEG, it is conveyed to PSEG, so it's it's something we basically give them as part of the project, because it becomes their property permanently. It's a
So they
condition.
become fee owners of
They
that
become fee owners
parcel?
of that parcel, which has actually been decreased in size. It's now appraised at 78,146 square feet. It used to be a little larger than that, but by shrinking the project's footprint, we were able to shrink that down as well.
To what?
Well, it's currently 78,146 square feet. And in terms of the project itself, the project was halved in terms of components. Do you want to note that?
Yeah, sure. So I think as I noted during our previous work session, the footprint of battery storage is a function of both power and energy capacity, so megawatts and megawatt hours. Megawatt hours is essentially the amount of batteries on the site. As we originally noted, the project was proposed initially as 50 megawatts over 400 megawatt hours, so an 8-hour system. In response to your comments about, scale of the site and preservation of vegetation and buffers to any sensitive receptors, we were able to cut that in half essentially. So we're now proposing a 4-hour system, which we still see as valuable to the electric grid.
So it's still
but
50 megawatts, but
50
4
megawatts, 200 megawatt hours, which we still see as valuable to the electric grid, but also now working with you all to try to accommodate some of your comments made. So we were able to essentially cut the project size in half, and John has the exact numbers, but we're clearing 4.13 acres and
Yes.
leaving 4.12 acres undisturbed. So leaving 50% of the site undisturbed and wooded.
Yeah.
So can we talk a little bit more about the PSEG carve-out?
Sure.
Do they have any kind of a substation there, or they're going to build a substation?
So we're gonna jointly build the substation with PSE&G and then convey ownership of that to them along with the underlying land.
So that does not exist?
No.
It does not exist today. So the purpose of the substation is, as you're aware, there's high voltage lines going in the transmission easement parallel with the MTA right of way. There's two ways to connect a high voltage utility scale project to the electric grid. You can either go directly into a substation, which still requires your own project substation with a main power transformer, connected either directly to an existing substation or what we're building here, which is called a POI substation. So what's happening is we're pulling PSE&G or LIPA's line into the 3-breaker ring bus and then back out the other side. That's allowing us to isolate the project from any direction. So energy flowing east can be cut off if LIPA is performing their own transmission maintenance. Energy can be cut off to the west to do the same on the other side, or energy can be cut off from our project to perform any maintenance within our own fence line and facilities. So that's the purpose of the 3-breaker bus, it's called. It's a point of interconnection substation, and it's essentially an extension of LIPA's grid so that we can connect to the existing high voltage line. If you're going directly into a substation that's already built by LIPA, for example, you would just build a new breaker within their existing substation to connect the project. In this case, because we're connecting to a line, we need to build a 3-breaker ring bus and then convey that to LIPA.
So let me ask you, because in my mind, this is very key to this project. Since LIPA doesn't have anything built, and you're hooking into some power line, a PSEG power line, where else, and you don't have anything built, then this could be built someplace else, is my point.
This can, so you, anywhere where there's high voltage lines, you can theoretically connect and build a new 3-breaker
Okay,
ring
that's
bus,
very interesting.
or directly to a substation. As we've noted and provided to Anthony, we've done a full GIS study of every parcel in the town, and then a full zoning analysis within the town. And from our perspective, this is one of very few locations in the town that are feasible for a utility scale project. Not only because of the acreage and the ability to maintain existing vegetation, but to mitigate from sensitive receptors and build an appropriately sited project that's of sufficient scale.
Can you refresh us as to where those other locations were?
So, I mean, there's a full list of them that Anthony has, but, I mean, they're either directly abutting a substation within the town, and other than those that potentially directly abut a substation, for us, this was the most feasible location.
I don't recall, but if I have one, I'll get it to the board, that's
Right,
okay.
but this is the work session, so this is why we're here. You know, we really should have this information available so that we can talk about it. So, I understand the substation, and I understand the proximity to an existing substation, a PSEG substation. But when you don't have to have that because it's a BOA or something, is that what you call it? A BOA
A
station?
POI, a point
POI.
of interconnection substation.
Then you could conceivably look elsewhere.
But we've done that analysis and determined that this is the most,
I'm asking you,
Effective.
were there any other properties that were at all possible?
this
That were,
was the,
that's not in this kind of a community?
this was the most feasible location for a project of this scale. That's what we determined based on our analysis.
But I'm asking you what some of the others were, and I'm not hearing you say anything.
I mean, there's a full list of parcels that we looked at. If you'd like, we can follow up with Anthony again with that list and those
Yeah, I mean,
maps, but
just
we have
remember,
them.
everybody, that's a okay piece of information, but the applicant submitted on this piece of property, so this is the one,
Well,
You know.
but we're looking at that. I mean, one of our difficulties, of course, is citing.
yeah,
Is
100%.
citing, you know, in this kind of a community. So that's why I'm asking you, were there alternatives in your research and looking that we could at least consider or think about or talk about? Because this, I could tell you, this remains very difficult for us.
Yeah, I mean, I think what Jackie, what you're trying to say is when we do a secret analysis, the applicant's part of that process, they have to look at alternative ways of doing this. And so an alternative way might be to put it somewhere else.
We've done that analysis, and I'm happy to follow up again with Anthony. I mean, one comment that you all made last time was, can we put it at Gabreski Airport? Contacted Gabreski Airport, had a conversation with the airport manager. It's not feasible for a number of reasons, including land constraints and FAA restrictions that don't allow the site.
Can I, if I
We've
may,
done-
okay, I'm sorry.
Please.
Just regarding that other site thing, I think it's good information to have, and, you know, to see where other possibilities are, but just from a secret standpoint, I just want to be clear, under secret, we look at alternatives and stuff like that, but secret generally, unless an applicant owns another piece of property, secret does not typically allow the planning board to say, can you do this property, can you do this project on such and such a property?
No,
So-
that's-
No, I understand, I just want to
That's
make
me,
sure.
that, we know that.
I know, I
But an alternative could be an
right,
alternative.
I'm saying, because everyone's asking for those properties, you know, we couldn't force them to site plan on those properties, that's all I'm
I know
trying to
that.
put that, you know.
When you scout properties, do you do that independently, or do you do that with the assistance of PSEG?
When we look at
When you look at.
feasible properties?
Yes.
Internally and with external consultants, but it involves a full GIS analysis, so we'll query, we have the map of all transmission lines and high voltage substations within a town.
Right.
And then we're gonna run a query, which is gonna pull all parcel data in proximity to those lines. And then we're gonna actually go to site and look at all those and figure out what makes the most sense. So, you know, we've done all of that transmission analysis to figure out where projects make sense electrically. Then we've done the physical analysis from a geographical standpoint to figure out like what projects are in certain zones are in proximity to those high voltage lines or substations that could potentially make sense. And then we actually went to certain sites and visited them and figured out why certain parcels may or may not make sense. For us, this parcel made sense for a lot of the reasons.
Can we,
and
can we
checked
talk
a lot
about
of
that for a
boxes.
moment? What about the highway business zoning makes it, an acceptable target for you, or an
It's
attractive target?
allowed use per adopted code amendments by the town board.
Okay, and is it proximity to the existing lines? Or
Yeah, I mean, like a utility scale project needs to be affixed to the high voltage system,
Mm-hmm.
right? So there's only so many locations that you can do that,
Right.
and this is one of those
This-
locations.
The overhead lines that on everybody's streets are not necessarily high voltage lines.
Exactly. Yeah, a lot of those are distribution level,
Mhm.
which is 13.2 kilovolts, which is, this project is connecting to 69 kilovolts.
Is this special exception or permitted?
Special.
Okay,
So,
so we have to do the 13 general standards.
and so here lies, so let me, to distinguish this, obviously, we've looked at a few, smaller scale, obviously not, another substation, so we could distinguish this project from the other ones, because this one involves the creation of another substation. The other side of it is the variances needed from the special exception standards. Again, the 12-foot sound mitigation wall leads, the question is, what will the decibel analysis show that requires or necessitates a 12-foot wall as opposed to a 6-foot fence, is what, just to sort of block off the thing as opposed to the noise. So that I think that was, an issue. And obviously the need to go to the zoning board for relief, not from zoning, I mean, for the standard dimensional requirements, but from special exception standards, which doesn't happen often. So I want to distinguish from the board, and so the applicant is aware of, what some of the other, issues are that, and anything else, obviously, that the board has.
The higher wall for sound mitigation, is that because the project, the amount of batteries is greater than what the code anticipated? Or why do we have 6 foot in the code and now they're requesting 10 foot?
There's the code requirement, it's two things. The code requirement just has a barrier requirement, whatever it is, 6-foot high fence and all the rest of it. That's it. There's no noise barrier requirement, but there are no noise standards. So in this particular case, given the proposal for a 12-foot wall raises the question of what kind of noise is being generated.
So we've done a noise study. We're in compliance with the sound code, and we've also measured to sensitive receptors and determined that there's no adverse impact to any sensitive receptors nearby. This is, generally speaking, a very quiet and discreet use. From our perspective, as you can tell from the visualizations, the wall is not creating a visual impact and is benefiting the project. So, I mean,
Can I ask a question on that? So you've reduced the scale of your project and you've also increased the setback substantially from. Have you run a separate noise analysis based on the reduced scope and the different setbacks? Like, do you still need a 12-foot wall, or is that still based on your initial analysis?
we haven't updated the sound report. We were in compliance with the larger project size. Realistically, I would still want to propose the mitigation wall because I think it's valuable.
I'm not saying that
But,
doesn't need to
Yeah,
be, doesn't need to be
an
12
updated
feet.
report would
As
be
part
filed with
of
the
the
full
formal
application.
submission, which we intend to do, we would provide an updated sound
And,
report.
and in reducing your scope from, reducing the scale of your battery storage, has anything on the battery units themselves changed? Are they taller? Are they stacked higher in the containers? Or are they
No
the same
changes.
as
It's literally just a function of the amount of batteries on the site and how long you can store the power.
So each
for.
individual unit size and dimension hasn't changed?
Yeah, we eliminated a number of units.
I
That's
see
what-
that, but I
Yeah,
know
so
you-
it went from 43,132 square feet of coverage to 21,804 square feet of coverage.
Can I go back to substation? You folks build the substation,
Yeah.
or
So
you
it-
said, I think there were two options
Yeah,
there,
so
for point of
we'll-
interconnection.
Will essentially be a joint engineering, procurement, and construction agreement with PSE&G. So
Okay.
we're gonna pay for it, and
Okay.
together we'll hire a contractor with PSE&G to build it. That contractor will build it, and then Key Capture will convey ownership of it along with that
Ah,
underlying
Okay, because my,
subdivided parcel.
and I may be wrong about this, but once the property is conveyed to PSEG or LIPA, it's out of the town's jurisdiction, correct? Don't,
It's qualified. It's not
qualify?
completely out.
Okay.
So, and-
There's legal cap.
And how we've approached to handle this in other towns is essentially put a covenant and restriction on the property that says that if the use were to change such that this substation is no longer being utilized in support of battery storage, any new application would need to be reconsidered with the town.
Say that again?
How are we handling it for 26?
For 26, that was what we proposed. It was, the concept is that if there's a situation where the site no longer works as a battery energy storage facility, it's termed out that these batteries all age over time, and eventually the site becomes no longer viable with the batteries on site. So you have two choices in that situation. You either remove all the batteries, you gotta remove all the batteries anyway at that point, you have no choice. But the situation is, at that time, you can replace them and put new batteries and replace the ones that have gone bad, or you decommission the site entirely, in which case it's a standard demolition, you remove everything. And in that circumstance, the POI lot still exists. Now, in some cases, LIPA may actually want to use that POI station. In some cases, they do. In other cases, it's not going to be useful to them. And so the covenant we proposed in 26 was a different situation because we had a substantial setback to the LIPA lines because they weren't on top of the lines. It was actually an easement that was connecting them. So in that particular case, once the KCE station was essentially done, and the easement that was connecting LIPO to the substation was termed out, that substation was of no use and would have to be, demolished.
And then the ownership of the land becomes.
The ownership of the land would stay with LIPA. It's
Oh, right.
And how
You
much
can
of,
require the decommissioning of it as well.
What?
You can require the decommissioning of it as well.
As part of the approval, but LIPA, PSEG retains ownership. So they could do.
Is it PSEG or is it LIPA? That's a big question
Either or,
since.
it's not an outright immunity. If you have a covenant on the land and part of the condition is such that the covenant requires a decommissioning in the event it's not going to be used for battery storage, and that's the way it's going to go.
No, but I'm saying, who is it LIPA or is it PSEG that's going to own it? Because
know.
PSEG
LIPA.
is a third-party vendor that's.
Right, so it'll be LIPA. would
It's
be the-
LIPA.
Yeah. But PSE&G manages LIPA's grid through a multi-year service
Right,
contract, but LIPA
but
owns all
There's
the.
lots of chatter about that possibly changing,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is why I'm asking the question.
Understood, yeah.
So you mentioned that you complied with the sound code. Is that the town sound code?
Mhm.
Yes.
There's just a standard
Yeah,
noise
it's a
requirement.
standard 50 decibels at night to residential boundary line.
Anthony, have you evaluated the subdivision aspect of this application?
Well, that was going to be the next thing I was going to mention, and we mentioned that obviously in the pre-submission conference, is, the other side of it is putting the proposed use aside, you're doing a subdivision, right? So at the end of the day, you do a subdivision and the project doesn't happen, now you're stuck with sort of this lot right in the
Yes.
middle of this property, so that's another issue that was raised in the,
So
because it's not a typical subdivision layout, we don't create lots like that, so.
Yeah, I think with the subdivision aspect of it is that it's an unusual development that's gonna take place on a new lot. Is any of that need to go to ZBA for zoning relief?
Well, that was one of the things we looked at initially. Initially, you were looking at like an easement as almost like a landlocked piece or whatever. But I don't know if the subdivision component has to go as part of a ZBA application, but maybe. But that it did on the pre-submission conference. I don't think any particular zoning issues came up as it relates to the subdivision. But I think certainly design would be one of them, because we don't just, this is sort of a square right in the middle here,
Right.
flag down. So, those are the things that we, obviously have to evaluate, and that was an issue, obviously.
No, but you look at that square and whatever you're building has, again, it's difficult to read. Is the equipment enclosure, for example, which is very close to the lot line.
There was mention of,
is there a setback?
I mentioned zero lot line
A
setback.
dimensional variance, so there is a dimensional variance proposed to utilize what's called a hard bus between the POI substation and the KCE substation. And a hard bus is done in lieu of underground or overground, above ground utility lines between the two substations. It's a more a secure model that's less likely, less prone to breakdowns. That's the main reason they use it. Alternatively, could we develop the project without that zero lot variance? The answer is yes. All you would do in that case is you would separate the two substations and you would bring the lines underground. In that circumstance, however, we would have to essentially adjust the lines and probably move the facility closer to the roadway to allow for the sufficient distance between the two to comply with both the rear yard setback and the front yard setback.
This was the most minimally impactful result in terms of
Yeah,
land
the
use.
particular
I'm
variance.
not disputing, I'm just saying, is that,
Yeah.
is that
Yeah, and
something that
then
needs to go
the
to
other
ZBA
issue
as well?
is, under the special exception standards, a best facility has to be, is a principal use, right? You mentioned this, Jackie, we discussed it. Then raises the question about the second lot, which won't be a best facility, it's going to be a substation for LIPA. What exactly is that use classified as under the code? Is it utility,
I
like you
believe it's a
said?
public utility.
That's just another,
So
Which
when
also
was the
requires
last time
It's
that
also
we ever
special.
created a lot for LIPA?
certainly not,
Did we ever?
I've been here, right? So, and again, that what distinguishes this project from the other ones is creates the
and
substation,
they're
which
not
is
even-
a utility scale project.
And they're not even party to this, right? I mean, it's
And
coming
it's
through
certainly-
you.
But yeah.
So LIPA doesn't come in until the end of the project, when we actually get full approvals, then we have the joint agreement and build it, and then they really don't even get a property interest until it's all built, and then it's conveyed to them. So they don't have a property interest until the very end.
But I would think that would be conditional approval on our part. I mean, unless LIPA comes in to comply with whatever requirements we would ask.
Yeah, I mean,
It's not
Yeah.
valid.
and then, one of the
Well,
other. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I will state that a covenant on the land runs with the land. It's not just bind, it doesn't just bind key capture energy, it would bind any person who takes possession after key capture.
But you can amend a covenant
You could amend a covenant, but they would have to come back to the planning board
Right.
and request it.
for a supermajority.
Correct.
That happens from time to
Yeah.
time.
But it's obviously individual facts that depend on that case.
Do you have an existing facility that any one of us could come see?
Sure, yeah,
Yeah.
we've got 2 operating projects in New York and a third one that's about to be built, about to be finished. Construction with the exact technology that's being proposed here.
Where are these?
I would take you to the one in Buffalo because it's the newest technology.
I think a video of it would be fine. Video with
Buffalo
Fire
audio.
bar ready to go. See?
Road trip.
And the other two?
I think we should go tomorrow in the
Road
snowstorm.
road trip
The
and
other
the planning board
one,
hours.
was built in 2019. It's a little bit older technology, but that's in Stillwater, New York, so just outside of Saratoga. So it's pretty far as well. And the third one's in Pomona, which was built by Key Capture and then sold to Orange and Rockland for their non-wires alternative. So it's a smaller project and deferring transmission upgrades, but that one's in the Hudson Valley.
So most of your projects are in the northern part of New York State.
To date, but those are also the 3 largest projects in the state to date. There's plenty of projects under development on Long Island by ourselves and other developers, as well as in the city and other parts of the state. But
I'm sure.
as
Where
you're-
else are you on Long Island? In Suffolk?
Multiple other locations, 6 different towns.
You have pending applications currently in the town of Southold, the town of Islip, and there will be several other applications that are going forward recently, soon, supposedly in town of Babylon and town of Brookhaven. And we have had a application in the town of Brookhaven before.
And are they more along than this one?
Town of Islip is farther along than this one. The other ones, I would say, are in similar situations. They're just waiting, they're pending full applications in some cases they're pending approval.
Yeah, well, Southold might get caught in moratorium.
Yeah, well, it's certainly quite a
So,
moratorium.
in terms
We-
of
we-
timing, just the general landscape and deployment of storage right now, this project would not get built prior to 2025. Realistically, probably 2026 or beyond, just based on the incentive mechanisms and contracting opportunities with NYSERDA or LIPA. So as you think about the timing of this project and when it actually be deployed and everything else, you're looking realistically at 2026, and by then, we'll have hundreds more of megawatts in multiple sites under operation, and there will be by that time likely projects under operation on Long Island, in the city, and other parts of the state that are actively under development right now.
This is all new technology for the state of New York and probably the United States in many cases. So we're sort of in the baby steps here, so we're asking lots of questions.
Yeah, and I appreciate those, and that's why we're here. We have, multiple sites under operation throughout the country. multiple sites in New York specifically, and, you know, we're actively monitoring technology improvements and proposing, you know, the least impactful and safest technology that we can. We'll continue to monitor that, but as part of this process, we'll develop an emergency response plan, work with the fire department and train the fire department, continue to engage with the civic associations as part of our application.
The projects like this, are they continuously putting power back into the grid, or is it on an as-needed basis? Like if we hit peak in the summertime, will they draw from here, or is it an emergency? How does it function?
Yeah, so they're constantly responding to the electric grid, but the New York Independent System Operator, the NISO, is responsible for dispatching energy resources throughout the grid, so they're constantly balancing load and generation.
Right.
Storage is a really unique resource because it's capable of charging and discharging over multiple hours and providing that power over longer periods of time.
Right.
But it's also capable of other ancillary services, so frequency regulation, voltage support, other things that, like today, a capacitor in a substation would do to respond to real-time fluctuations in grid frequency. So it's capable of both like just being available for peak demand in the summer, for example,
Right.
but also responding in real time with short discharges and charges of power.
So it's fully
to
integrated.
potentially defer transmission upgrades,
Right,
yeah.
okay.
So it's fully integrated and constantly capable of responding in real time to grid needs.
And you're basically filling the batteries when electricity is cheap, and then
Well-
giving it back to the grid when it's.
When it's plentiful, more
When
than
it's,
cheap.
when it's
Plentiful, yeah.
plentiful.
Yeah, well, from an economic, from a business perspective, you want to send it back when you're gonna get paid more than you paid to get it.
Yeah, but the way that energy markets work, it's called the marginal cost of energy. So let's say there's 100 megawatts of demand in a certain region of the grid. 90 megawatts is bid at $0 because it's all storage that was charged during offshore wind in the nighttime, and that renewable energy was basically free. But the last 10 megawatts is provided by a peaker plant nearby, and they're going to charge, $100 per megawatt hour. Everyone gets paid the marginal cost of energy, so everyone would get paid that. So at the end of the day, our goal is price convergence. Like, we want to make readily available clean energy, charging offshore wind during the nighttime, charging solar when it's not utilized, bring it to our system, and then discharge that back and make it available to the grid, ultimately displacing higher cost energy generation that would have to be dispatched, and then actually be the marginal cost of energy that everyone is paid out, which leads to more expensive energy for repairs.
I thought I understood this, but what I think you just said is you're gonna use offshore wind electricity. That just goes into the grid. It's not running to your batteries.
Yeah, I'm just using the offshore wind example as an economic example. If the offshore wind is blowing in the middle of the night, but no one's actually using that power, we
You're
would
gonna-
charge
well,
it, and that would be
We're saying the same thing.
It goes into the
Big-
grid, but it does,
Yes.
you have access
Yeah.
to take that
Correct.
off the
Yeah.
grid into your
Yeah.
batteries.
Yeah, we're agnostic into where that energy actually comes from.
Yes, but you want to bring in the cheapest and sell them, and even if the marginal is obviously more than the cheapest, so that's where your company makes money.
I mean, yes and no, because at the end of the day, everyone would make the same amount of money in that scenario because they're all getting paid the marginal cost of energy. Our goal is ultimately to reduce ratepayers' bills. We're a public utility, so, and realistically, we're gonna try to contract with someone for, a fixed arrangement or whatever it may be, so. Our goal is, as part of this is to, make available clean energy that's typically cheap and make it available to ratepayers, and that's the goal.
Can you just speak to the lithium battery issue? Recently in the news, there have been several fires with lithium batteries. Can you speak to that and how you've interfaced with local fire communities, fire departments?
Yeah, absolutely. So in support of our application, our formal submission, we would include a number of technical safety reports. So we'll work with a third-party consultant, and they'll perform a detailed review. It's called a an HMA, a hazard mitigation analysis. So they take a look at the specific battery cells that we're proposing, as well as the total system design, and generate a report for your review and the public's review, which will outline the safety of the system. We'll also generate an emergency response plan.
At what stage do you do this?
This will all be provided in our initial application submission. We'll
Okay,
also meet with the fire department and walk them through the technology and the use and lay out a plan to train them throughout the project.
Let me just say this is a work session to gain more information, to
Yeah.
help us, to have you get some feedback from us. And what I'm hearing is that this will come later. You'll get this when we file the application. That does not serve us. I mean, I would like to know how and what you're going to handle a lithium fire, a fire that gets out of control. I mean, that's what the dialogue is for. I don't know how everybody else feels, but I'm not getting the information that I need.
So your specific question is, how would we
We
handle?
asked this before, and I think that we may have had the same response.
So the specific question is, how, like, what is this question? How would we respond to an event, or what is
Yeah,
the likelihood of an event?
start with that, yeah.
Okay, how would we respond to an event?
Mhm.
So there's a number of safety protocols in place for the system, right? So the modules are responding to real-time fluctuations, and there's multiple sensors on the modules. There's a inert gas sensor, there's a temperature sensor, there's a voltage sensor, all of those monitoring real-time conditions. If any of those safety thresholds is exceeded, the first mitigation measure is to de-energize that specific unit.
Just
So-
that unit, not the
so-
whole system.
Just that unit, right? In theory, it could de-energize the entire system, but that's the specific unit at issue. That would be the system that would be de-energized. And in a case where that doesn't mitigate the issue and a thermal runaway event were to occur, so a cell is punctured or damaged, and a fire were to occur, there's then, a thermal runaway is now happening, right? So what you have is a fire occurring within a module. That specific module is rated to a certain thermal rating. The rack that the module is in is rated to a certain thermal rating and fire protection, and the container itself is all designed to handle that issue. There's a number of control measures in place, including a sprinkler system within the exact container that's all going to try to respond to that issue. In the case where that doesn't occur and that specific unit were to catch fire, any surrounding container and the system is also designed such that any specific unit were to catch fire, it would not propagate to the next unit. So you're looking at many containers in the site plan here. We're talking about, in a worst-case scenario, one of these units is to catch fire. The system is designed such that no other unit would catch fire. So we're talking about a really specific, isolated scenario in that instance. And then in that case, we would work with the fire department to develop an emergency response plan. They would come out site, and there'd be some sort of defensive firefighting in place to limit any future propagation and targeting that specific unit that had an issue.
So in your testing, your real-time testing with these modules and your manufacturing, I guess you're manufacturing these?
No, we don't manufacture the batteries. We procure them from.
From where?
There's a number of vendors. This specific unit is proposed with SunGrow. But, Tesla is a big name in the industry. There's other battery providers as well.
You said that it's designed so it couldn't go to the next module. How?
Yeah, I mean, there's thermal, heat, just like when you design certain fire protection equipment, there's fire ratings and walls as to how, so it's sealed with the right materials in place, so it's such that it wouldn't. But at this point, we're getting to a really technical level that I would prefer to have my third-party engineering consultant in the room to kind of walk through these type of questions, and we can make sure that they're available for these type of questions during future hearings.
Have you ever experienced this in the testing with the manufacturer of these units? Have they done the way they do with automobiles, with fires and crashes.
As-
Have you been on site to see this?
I haven't been on site, but as part of the necessary codes and standards that we need to comply to, one of them is that they need to force the specific cells and equipment into thermal runaway
Mm-hmm,
and force that fire to occur,
right,
and then test how the system complies with the necessary codes and requirements. How is it propagating to other modules? How is it propagating to other equipment? So all of this is like literally forced into a worst-case scenario to make sure that the system is designed in a way that it wouldn't spread to any additional units.
So this type of equipment's included in current building codes, fire standard codes?
Yeah, there's a number of applicable codes and standards, the International Fire Code, International Building Code. There's a New York State storage supplement that has all these specific, fire code standards and certifications in place at the battery cell level, at the battery module level, at the rack level. There's also specific construction requirements. It's called NFPA 855, for example, is one of them, that the actual installer has to meet and adhere to as part of the installation process. And all of these would be laid out in, a formal application and discussed with the fire department and then ultimately adhered to when we build the project.
I'm just curious, is your fire suppression within each module water, or is it a chemical?
There's different ways to design it. There's an aerosol-based kind of suppression unit, or there's water. There's benefits to both, but
You said sprinkler systems, I just wondering if it was.
yeah, so like
sprinkler.
these are designed with a dry sprinkler system. So essentially what you have is a dry sprinkler system in each unit. In the case of a worst case scenario, you would hook that respective unit up to a nearby hydrant. In this case, there's already an existing hydrant in front of the property, and you would flood that specific unit
With water. if
with
you had
water. But honestly,
to.
like,
I mean, if you had to.
if we had to, right? Like when we're working with fire departments, we're actually oftentimes recommending that we don't utilize water because water doesn't actually put out a battery fire, right? Because it's
Yeah,
so
you wanna-
hot
you
and so
wanna-
that just keeps going. So what we recommend is let the system do what it's designed to do, which is to suppress the fire and not propagate to other units, and just do defensive firefighting. So spray
way
the
down.
surrounding equipment, spray the surrounding containers, allow that respective fire to kind of burn out and play its course while protecting the rest of the system.
So if the fire is encased in this material that's not going to be able to be popped open, it's the lack of oxygen that eventually shuts the fire down?
Correct, yeah.
Does our code speak to that, our battery, the legislation that was?
Just in general terms, requires the submission of a fire safety compliance plan, an operation and maintenance manual. I don't have the language right here. So they just give the general requirements and,
Yeah.
conforming with the
Yeah.
Uniform Fire Code and that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
and all
But
of
it-
those are the Uniform Fire Code and all the standards that.
Yeah, it's nice sort of language.
Yep.
It
Yeah.
would be helpful for us to look at that code, because I think that parts of that code need amending. And there could be some indication in it as to an overall master plan for locations in the town. I mean, this is a technology that's new, expanding, and necessary. And I think that our code doesn't fully address all the issues, which is why we're having this work session, and we've had several conversations.
And I was gonna suggest maybe, that, I know sooner or later we'll get to the fire marshal on this, but I would suggest, sooner than later, get
Have him
the
come to
fire
a work
marshal
session.
office. Right.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, as part of our formal application, we would request guidance from you as to how we should relate with the fire marshal and the fire department, but our plan would to be engaged directly with him, provide him the technical reports that we would generate and have those conversations and as part of the application review
yeah.
process.
But that's important for us to know, too.
I think
Yeah,
it's-
absolutely.
It's gonna be beneficial to secure some personnel, some oversight, someone to review this with specific expertise. I don't know that our fire marshal is up to date with the latest fire suppression of these type of facilities?
Yeah, I think that you're probably right. Because we did our referrals on the two others, and sure, they were small, but they came back with their, comments. And
Yeah.
they were pretty general, and obviously in the last one we did, there was, they're gonna be doing training, with the,
Right.
so you make a very good point, actually, is that there's probably a lack of maybe some information.
I'm sure they're out there.
I mean, it says in this article that the Suffolk County Fire Academy, which exists, that while the Fire Academy's lithium-ion battery training involves smaller batteries found in automobiles, the Academy works with the Energy Safety Response Group to provide training in departments that have best systems.
So-
And then it goes on.
Yeah, so Energy Safety Response Group, ESRG, is currently our consultant on Long Island. So some former FDNY gentlemen that actually helped inform the New York City Fire Code and inform some of the first deployment of energy storage within the city. And they're definitely proactive in doing a lot of training to various Suffolk County Fire Academy and fire departments and other groups, and they'd pretty much be working hand in hand with us as we move through this process to make sure that everyone's up to par on the knowledge gaps and making sure that everyone is making an informed decision. But they would absolutely be in the room and supporting this process as you review our application. The town's adopted code requires that, these systems comply with pretty much the most restrictive and the highest quality standards in the country today, which New York has. So I don't think that there's much that can really be changed in that regard, other than just ensuring that developers like ourselves adhere to those standards when we're deploying these systems.
Can you tell us the manufacturer of these systems again?
Yeah, as I mentioned, this is currently proposed with SunGrow.
Sun, S-U-N,
SUNGROW.
That's an American company?
They have U.S. offices, but they're based in China.
China.
Yeah. So today, the vast majority of batteries are manufactured in China, as you would expect. Per the Inflation Reduction Act and other incentives, the domestication of supply chain is coming. It's coming quickly. It's certainly possible that by the time this project is built, we're procuring U.S. manufactured batteries. But the truth is that today, the large majority of batteries are manufactured in China and Korea.
I put solar on my house 5 years ago, and they're Chinese.
Yeah, I mean, the good news is that it's happening, right? We're domesticating our supply chains, and it's going to be extremely important that we do so. But today, the large majority of our raw materials and manufacturing occurs elsewhere.
So when the battery's at the end of its life, it's useful, what, you take it out of commission, what becomes of that battery?
So it's recycled. Actually, within the state of New York, there's a recycling facility right now. They were just published in an article, top 10 technologies of 2022. It's a really interesting time because lithium-ion batteries like these can actually 99% be captured and reutilized with the raw materials. So you need to get to a certain threshold of supply chain for lithium-ion and these raw materials. But then once you reach that kind of circular economy where the supply equals the demand, and we're growing really quickly right now, right? We're deploying batteries and battery storage systems, electric vehicles, et cetera, really quickly right now. But once we get to a supply chain healthy enough to supply that growing demand, the good news is that there is recycling technologies out there that allow you to actually reutilize a lot of the raw
When you have
materials.
enough batteries that are no longer useful.
Right. Once you have enough batteries and raw materials within that system, there is an opportunity to create a somewhat circular economy and utilize a lot of those materials.
Is the lithium recaptured?
Lithium's recaptured, yeah. So the name of the recycling facility is, I forget, but it's in Rochester, and I can follow up with Anthony with the exact name.
Upstate, yeah.
Yeah.
Got land up there.
Well, I was just gonna say the
More
land's
land
cheaper
up there.
than it is down here.
More land than here,
Yeah.
that's for sure. Are there any other questions or dialogue or whatever? Well, thanks very much for helping. I think you've taken it to the next level in terms of information.
Yeah, I mean, our goal is obviously to supply you all with as much information as possible. I think we've made a number of modifications to our design, and, you know, next steps for us would be to submit a formal application at this point.
I mean, this town has goals of getting off the grid, so, you know, we're working. You're somewhat of a helpful guinea pig.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
remember,
At this
people-
scale, we haven't had
Yeah.
one. I mean, they're
Exactly.
very small, so, you know.
People are uncomfortable and frightened of new technologies and what may become of them. So as a pioneer, it's incumbent upon you
You know, just, you
to
know,
bring the info.
Yeah,
for the applicant, you know, given that the scale of this one, which is different than the other ones, a comparison between what the town has already approved versus this one would be helpful, given the need for relief in this case, which wasn't the case in the other ones, is going to require some analysis on your part, I think. So just be aware that those secret issues are not yet resolved. That's,
Right,
you know, that's what the
and-
purpose of the secret process
And
is.
what would be helpful to the town, to the board, is some engineering information and expertise that we could rely on.
Sure.
Because it's certainly beyond our pay grade. You know, we had a NYSERDA workshop here for training, but that was pretty dense.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I agree.
I mean, I'm co-chair of this town's sustainability committee, so I'm maybe a little further ahead in the knowledge than the rest of the board, but I'm still asking a lot of questions.
For sure.
We were counting on you to be our expert.
And citing is
You know I'm the
extremely
green
important
expert.
here. I mean, just as any development, we have a very small landmass. And, you know, we've got highway business juxtaposed to residential. And so in terms of the responsibility of this board, it's to look at that kind of additional development.
yeah, understood. I think from our perspective, this is a pretty discrete use, and compared to what other uses are permitted at the site, the fact that we're maintaining half of it completely vegetated, it's, you know, pretty appropriately screened and mitigated from a visual perspective. We're gonna comply with the sound code. So from our perspective, it's a really beneficial use to the town's sustainability goals and Long Island's clean energy goals more
Yeah,
broadly. And
Yeah,
I mean-
to that point, we also, the project doesn't involve traffic on roadways, so obviously that area gets
Yeah,
pretty bad.
There are a lot of pluses, but, you know, we have to be concerned about the people just being afraid of what could happen
Mhm.
if there's a fire.
right,
Of course.
that's the big question that we receive
There's
all the time.
fire, noise, visual, there's
Yeah,
a lot
yeah.
of components.
And, you know, and
that have
some
to be
of
taken.
them you've already made a good attempt to address. But,
Yep, and we'll continue to answer the
Yeah.
questions to
Yeah.
the extent we can. So-
And I think there's a responsibility on the part of the town to do a bit more work in terms of working on some kind of master plan for siting.
Understood.
But how do we pass that up to whoever we pass it up to?
Well, I'm sure we discussed it with Janice, obviously, we certainly, she's aware of it, so
You know,
I'll
we do
continue to
have,
push.
we have industrial zones,
Yep,
and we have an industrial park that has some vacant lots.
Aren't we supposed to have a joint work session with the town board?
Well,
Yes.
I'm working on that.
Yeah.
That would be
I'm working on
an
it.
important agenda item, I think, to discuss.
yeah, I mean, I know the town has looked at any properties they own and whether they would be suitable for battery storage or solar.
Mhm.
That's been worked on, and there's not as much as they thought initially.
There's really limited options here.
Well, this was actually
Yeah.
town-owned, not just vacant land.
Yeah, I think the town just recently released or completed an RFP process for potential solar on the landfill
the
and
North
other
Sea,
solutions.
yeah.
So
Mhm.
a lot of exciting stuff happening. and,
Mhm.
um,
But a lot of the town-owned land is bought with community preservation fund money, and that, so it can't be used for industrial.
yeah.
Okay,
thanks, everybody.
Thank you all very
Thank
much for
you
your
very
time
much.
and consideration.
Yes.
Again,
Thank you, gentlemen.
okay, closing out the work session and going into the day's regular session, we're looking at, thank you, Anthony.
Thank you.
And you're up, 911 Flanders. Is this the revised traffic?
Yeah, I sent you the information, they clarified, that The price is basically, I have the same resolution as last time.
Okay.
Said it was $5,500 for the analysis, the report, and then it included 2 virtual meetings, and then the additional $1,900 for the 2 in-person meetings. So per their proposal, the $7,500 to $7,400 was the cap, and they clarified in the email that they would, when they come out for meetings, do on-site inspections and that sort of thing. I know Gloria raised a question about that in the
And so did Tom.
Tom, yes, oh, yes, that's right,
I
Tom.
defer to
Yeah,
Tom
Tom.
Yeah, I
as
saw
the
that.
traffic expert.
You know, what I would say, Tom, is, I'll take any advice, but, we gotta sort of hone in on what they need to do and everything, and, I gotta control it somehow, so I keep a number that's reasonable for everybody involved, so.
Right.
Is there another, is anybody here from AKRF, actually? Okay, no.
Okay. Yeah, I think when we exchanged the emails, I think, they said they would visit the site on their way here for their in-person meeting, which is a good start. My question was, if at some point we determined that, we needed them, or they determined they needed to take another look at the site, I don't know if you can do a contingency, or.
Well,
if they would-
it's built into the proposal that they would have to just give us another estimate.
Okay.
And that would have to be provided for any work beyond, what's covered under the proposal.
It's a
Because
little
Tom,
vague.
you had a bunch of specifics
Yeah,
about some sight lines. on
Right, the
s-
site distance.
Yeah.
Well, I
some
mean, but
concerns.
these
I
are,
have-
but these are questions that when they come and they start,
Right,
that
yeah.
this board should be asking them at that time, I
Right.
think would be the most appropriate thing to do.
Right, I have those questions, I'm saving them, rather
Perfect,
than
I have to, actually.
rattle them off right now,
So
but,
I guess when I read comments from the planning board members, I realized that, is this just a drive-by that they're going to do? Or is this a site
Right.
visit, physical site visit to the site, spending some time there, looking at traffic flow, looking at patterns, et cetera?
The traffic consultant is going to go to the site and observe the traffic that's going on
They
there.
have to make meaningful observations in order to meaningfully give you all direction
Right.
in terms of mitigation, et cetera. So that's on them, like, they need to do their jobs, and they will know what they need to do in order to
But they're
provide
not
you
doing
with
they're
information.
not doing the traffic study, they're reviewing a traffic study, so they can't go out there and do, spend copious amount of hours taking,
Traffic counts and
I
stuff.
think-
No, I think you're right about that.
I
yeah.
think that, kind of the standard minimum, bare minimum, would be, 15 minutes on site. I mean, to me, whether it's, the traffic study we're gonna review, or our consultants, you have to be on site a minimum
well,
of
I
15
think whatever
minutes.
time they need to adequate, because some sites are different than
Yeah,
others.
that's why I'm
Yeah,
saying,
I don't think
that's the
driving
bare
around the
minimum.
traffic circle once is
No,
appropriate.
not, right, just tapping the brakes and going through is
Yeah,
not, doesn't
I'm
do
being a
it.
little facetious, but.
Yeah, no, you are. The traffic consultants from AKRF are not going to do a drive-by and make an analysis to this board.
Right.
Okay.
They will be on site.
Okay.
So,
Why is this highlighted? in-
oh,
is
only
this the-
because, for the purposes, if you look at the end of it, at the request of the applicant's representative, it's a date to extend the secret determination. At this stage of the game, I'd like to just, and we could always extend if we need more time, I'd like to go out 2 more months, actually, and just,
Okay.
and leave it at that, so I would just.
Do we want to put a date specific
Yeah,
or
and I
not?
wrote it down, it was April 27th, right? That's what I'm
Somebody from
saying.
the applicant is here, and you're consenting to that?
Yeah.
They're not in yet.
To April
April 27th.
27.
So then the recommendation is resolve to retain AKRF per their proposal, which includes 4 meetings, 2 in person and 2 via Zoom, not to exceed $7,400, and then to extend the secret determination deadline until April 27th, 2023.
Do you want to put that in this motion or separate?
Yeah, I'm putting, no, it's the 2 resolutions, to retain the traffic consultant and to extend the secret determination until April
Oh,
20.
you want it all in one thing? Can't you do 2 separate? I think.
You want 2 separate
I think it would be
resolutions?
better to have 2
It would be
separate.
cleaner,
much
but you
cleaner.
you can do it, you can just say you're gonna do that, if the
Yeah.
board's comfortable with that, he's gonna say.
Let's
he'll
do
break that
2
out.
and we'll vote on it.
Okay, so then
separately.
the first resolve is to retain AKRF for an amount not to exceed $7,400, which includes 4 meetings, 2 in person and 2 via Zoom.
And a on-site,
And on-site
an
inspections.
on-site visit,
Yep.
yeah. Okay, motion?
Motion.
Motion by Gloria and second by Craig, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 6 in favor, 1 absent. And then an extension on the secret determination
Until April
till
27th.
April 27th, 2023.
That's right.
Motion by Dennis.
Second.
Second by George, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 6 in favor, 1
Oh, yeah.
absent. Thank you. Thanks, Christie. Okay,
Number
Anthony,
3 is off.
Evergreen, is that coming back on in 2 weeks, or?
Possibly. Maybe not. Maybe more time.
Claire, you are 3-5 Montauk.
Yeah, I have a pre-submission report. I've seen this a
Is it
couple
in the
of
packet?
times. It is. It's on page 14, the report itself. And then the
Oh, yeah.
plans start on page 9. So this is I guess the old BMW. It's not in operation right now, but, which you pointed out before, Jackie.
Mm-hmm.
But they want to take this front overhang area and enclose it. It's about 2,100 square feet. Yeah. Yes, exactly.
So it's the glass enclosed section?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Do you want me to pull it up on the?
Can you pull
Yeah, if
it
you
up on
don't
the
mind.
screen?
Yeah, you know what? Let's go to GIS, and we'll do a front view on this. You know, she sent me pictures, but it was of the side. It wasn't of the front of the building, so I didn't have an accurate picture for you. But we could Google this. That might help. So there's the property. Google Street View. I don't know if that's helpful, but can you see that
No,
on the
screen's
screen?
black.
How's that?
Oh, I was looking there.
Oh, that one's black.
Safety's good.
There you go. That's the Google Street View of the property.
Okay.
And so you can see that overhang that they're simply going to enclose. The elevations seem in character with the, very modern part of the building.
Glass, are they enclosing it
Glass.
with glass on all 3 sides?
Yes.
It's gonna be display.
Display.
Sure.
You just broke it, Charles.
We get this one, okay, but that one.
So that's actually a nice view of it. You can see that
They're
it's.
not doing anything with the roof line, right? They're just really including.
No,
it. Yeah.
no, basically enclosing it, yeah. I do have the elevations too, if you want me to get out of
Let's
this.
take a look.
Yeah. We'll go back to my PDF. This is what it's gonna look like, and I'm gonna zoom in a little bit. So it's glass,
On all 3 sides?
yeah.
No way to control any lighting in there, Claire.
That's a good point. Do you wanna put that in, the interior lighting?
Yeah.
And the glare?
Right.
Great. I'll make a new, number for that. Okay. Do you wanna go through the other points?
Sure.
Okay.
I mean, might that be you talk about glare, a safety hazard for drivers making that turn onto County Road 39 from Montauk?
Mm-hmm. We definitely notice it. A couple of these, the one next door to this definitely has that
Yeah.
issue.
We had a
of the
very
glare.
detailed evaluation. Remember the old patio.com building?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was never built, but
Yeah,
Mm-hmm, yeah.
it was all glass and
all
you were
Yes.
very
glass, and
concerned
we
about
were
that,
very honed in
yeah.
on the lighting on that.
Right, exactly. So here's the description. There was a pre-submission conference. There was no comments. It is a site plan application. In this case, it's only site plan application because they already have the use of the motor vehicle dealership. The ZBA did grant the variance for the additional square footage up to the 30,155 square feet, where 15,000 is permitted. It is an unlisted action, but the planning board adopted the negative declaration on December 15th. The outdoor storage and display, you had indicated that you were concerned about the encroachments. Got car dealerships come in and they encroach, so we'll have some restrictions attached to that. Parking and access, there would be no anticipated change. That was already display under that space. The appearance of the building is modern, obviously ARB approval during the process. I'll mention that under 5.
It's all black now, Claire. Is there intention to revamp the whole?
Yeah,
look
it's
of
more
it?
of a glass appearance here, don't you feel? In terms of the box stays, but I think the columns are coming out and it's more of a glass appearance here in this front
Did they
elevation.
do a rendering of any kind?
Yeah, we can suggest renderings.
Mm-hmm.
For the other comments, can they explore, non-glare or non-reflective type of glass, if they're, so we avoid that issue?
Well, it's the non-glare glass, right? But it is also where they just shine the whole showroom up and it
Yeah,
becomes,
because the big light bulb.
it
Right,
becomes the light bulb.
Right.
Yeah, so it's maybe a combination of those two
Yeah,
issues.
one is,
Right. Right.
their lighting could be an obstruction, the other will be the cars driving down the roads, headlights be
Right.
bounce back.
Right, especially if it's all 3 sides.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Claire, you had a photo of it up first. Can we get any more street trees, or do we need any more there?
I think there are street trees.
There's that one-
Going back to
There's one,
there's definitely 2. Oh,
Two.
yeah, there's nice size, 2 there, and I think there's one on the other side, yeah. They're very nice sized trees.
and they've got some planting there.
Yeah, so I would suggest plantings along here,
Mm-hmm.
just to
Yeah.
soften, that low
Just to
planting.
And that might
Mhm.
also help with the glare, the reflection of the glass
Yes.
as well.
Mhm.
Yes.
I'll add a
An
new
ink
thing
barrier
to
or
plantings.
something.
Yeah, or even those grasses, that are nice.
Well, you want a little bit to hide the
Hide
asphalt.
the type, yeah,
Mhm.
hide that road,
So like 3 to 4 foot tall
yeah,
hedges and then some grasses.
yeah.
Okay. Great. All good comments. Anything else?
So we've added 3, the interior lighting,
Mhm.
provide renderings, and additional plantings.
Yep.
Are they changing any of the signage on the facade of that?
It looks like, I don't know if it's labeled BMW now, but
They took everything
Yeah.
down, so they took all the signage down.
yeah, they
The
did.
site plan did show BMW of Southampton.
So do you want to say
sign.
something about the signage? Shall we review the
Reviewed by
planning board?
us. Mhm.
Okay. Great, all good comments. Anything else? I recommend adopting with those 4 changes.
Public hearing?
I think public hearing, you would think, no public
No,
hearing.
probably not.
It's ZBA, you had the pre-submission process.
Yeah.
Okay, waive public hearing,
Yeah.
that'll help, okay.
Okay, motion to adopt
Motion.
by Gloria, second
Second.
by Craig, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 6 in favor, 1 absent.
Great.
Is the Tesla application moving forward? I see
Yes.
the building, okay, because
It
the
is
building
moving.
has a for sale sign on it.
Right, no, it is moving forward, that, you just adopted the pre-submission
Yeah.
at the end of December,
Yeah.
so,
Well,
yeah.
that's why when I saw that sign, I was curious.
Yeah, exactly.
This is
Yeah.
it still has a for sale sign.
Yeah, that's
does
what I
it?
said.
Yeah.
But there's a
'cause-
for sale sign on it.
No, as far as I know, they're actively going forward.
Yeah.
My 2 resolutions for the, setting the maintenance bond, didn't get in, I have
Let's do it.
copies.
Thank
Do you
you.
want copies of it, or just want me to tell you the amounts? It's
For what, Claire? Where are
The
you?
next
maintenance
one
bonds.
is,
The
West Hampton
West
Country
Hampton
Club?
Country
Beach
Club,
and-
we're setting a maintenance bond.
That was, yeah. That was.
Thank you.
This one is to set the maintenance bond for the landscaping, it's an amount of $5,500.
That's the West Hampton Country
The
Club.
West Hampton Country Club.
I'll move it.
Okay, motion by Dennis, second
Second.
by
Second.
George, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 6 in favor, 1 absent.
And the next one is the Hampton Business District. The amount for the landscaping in total was $342,000, and the amount of the maintenance bond would be $114,300.
And how is that
Extensive.
held?
Is this,
Extensive landscaping.
Extensive
is this,
landscaping.
was this the Amazon building? Or
This is actually the last building,
the
which
last
is the
one
sixth one.
going up right now?
And in the
Yeah.
back, yeah, yeah. Yeah, so they're complete, actually, though. I went to do the
You
site
did?
section last
Yeah.
week, and it looks good. The
Good.
whole walking path is done, so
Great.
everybody wants to take a walk.
That's a
Yeah,
good
we actually
exercise
had a-
path,
Yeah,
right?
it's great.
Yeah, we actually had the fire department did a walk through the Amazon facility last week.
Okay.
For fire purposes planning. It was
Sure.
interesting to get a walk through the building.
Oh, it is,
It's
right?
very interesting
Yeah.
to see. I mean, to see and find out, talk to the staff and find out how they operate.
Yeah,
Has
exactly.
it been almost a year now? Do we have a chance?
No,
Not yet.
no, I think full capacity has happened as of around the holidays.
Yeah.
So we're gonna be
Around
about a
Christmas?
year, and they wanted this facility too, number 6, to be in operation too for a full year. So now it's getting its CO. So then I think starts the year, and then we'll revalidate the traffic, which
Yeah,
is
the
good.
traffic light
Yeah.
in Bose's, which is right across the street.
So
Yeah.
just as an aside, because I've been absent from this, until last year,
Mhm.
the hotel that was planned initially is off the table for that?
It's gone.
Yeah, that's
Amazon,
gone.
it was
Yeah.
in exchange for Amazon.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, so we have to move this, a motion for the, motion by Gloria, and second by Dennis, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 6 in favor, 1 absent.
Change, it's a good hotel.
sorry, go back to
Anthony
your.
McGee,
I'll take care of that.
200 McGee.
Yes. I took this over for Matt. Okay.
What page is it in the packet?
It is
21,
It's
21.
21.
21?
21 and beyond.
So this is a 2-lot subdivision. Property is just over 2 acres on North McGee Street in Tuckahoe, R40 zoning district, New York State archaeological sensitive area. It's got multiple structures here, as you could see. The proposal is to do a flag lot with the house in the back, and then this would be a residence in the back. These are all accessory structures that are CO'd. I actually gave the board the checklist this time in the packet.
Yeah, but not the resolution.
What's that? The resolution didn't make it?
No.
No, just the checklist.
That's when I thought everything was smooth. But in any case, the checklist, we're just deeming this application incomplete.
What's missing?
There were some mapping items, and there was something in there about the archaeological. I didn't see an archaeological report done. I want to talk to the applicant about that because
Is
you'd
it
have to.
in, oh, it's in that.
It's a, yeah, and so, so they have to deal with that.
So
But,
just say how that, there's going to be a flag lot in the back?
yeah,
You're going to come up with the driveway.
yeah, I probably should have the map here. Hold on.
Page 22, that's it.
Oh. Sorry. There we go. Yep, so the flag lot to the back, the second lot would be back here. Common driveway, all the other existing improvements are here. They did include the slope in excess of, it says in excess of 15% here, so they did put showing an easement over that. I don't like easements that are irregular like this. I like them to have meets and bounds description that are
Sure.
boxy. So we'll probably have that change made, but that'll be a
Replace that.
condition of approval. But nevertheless, it's incomplete at this point.
Does that affect lot coverage if they extract the topography?
No, because
No.
it does, you don't extract it from yield or anything like
don't.
that. We just are protecting it is all we're doing, so,
Okay.
yep.
So it's incomplete?
Incomplete, yep.
Okay, motion to deem this incomplete by Dennis, second by Tom, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 6 in favor, 1 absent.
Hampton Six Realty. This is the one on West Montauk Highway in Hampton Bays. The market expanding into where the Liggett's was. This was actually initially on for completeness. While back, it was deemed incomplete. The engineer did the review. We got all new revised plans, so that's good. I went to go recommend to deem it complete, but told the applicant today that we have to do secret. So we're not going to deem it complete today. It's an unlisted action. And I'm just going to recommend that we do the secret on this one. I don't know if you want to coordinate or not.
It's optional.
I don't think it's necessary here, because I don't think any other agency is gonna get involved. And then we'll do a secret at another meeting then. That was my fault, and so it's,
So is this going to be coordinated with the improving the,
oh, this is, I got a street
the
view here.
plan, the parking lot next door that
Yeah,
we've talked
post
about,
office.
Well, yeah, actually, they're providing the cross-access here
right?
with this parking lot, and actually, the town had the survey done for that property, so
Okay.
that's another reason to actually hold off, so I could make sure that we line everything up. And they're gonna do the cross-access up here also, they're putting one in place in case you could get to the points further west, which was part of the town's.
But, so the parking lot to the east is
The town.
town-owned?
Yeah, yeah.
So did the town do a plan for that revised parking?
Well, they had, yeah,
They're
they,
in the process.
they're in the
Of
process.
doing it now,
Yeah, I
so.
think they have it already designed.
My
Good.
guess is that there'll be changes to this site plan as a result of what the town's looking to do in there, and that there'll be made conditions of approval. You know, obviously, maybe some of the parking will have to shift, but nevertheless, they're showing the two-way in and out, which is the key to the site plan here.
The main thing is to close up one of those curb cuts side by side. It's very bad.
You mean
Well,
up
onto-
here?
Where,
Yeah,
onto
well, you have
Main
the
Street
town
or
curb,
the
no,
other?
no.
On good ground?
On good ground.
Oh, on
You
good
got
ground,
the-
yes, yes.
Got the town curb cut right next to, probably 15 feet away from the other one. And the cars are queued, and it's a busy road, and there's an opening, and
Yeah,
invariably, one wants to turn right, one wants to turn left, have the conflict.
yeah, perfect. So,
And that truck on
well, it's either
loading
gonna,
area.
let's put it this way, it's either gonna be
Yeah.
the towns or this applicant, right, closing up one of them, so,
One of them should be
Or the
closed
town,
up,
probably.
So,
yeah.
we'll have that to help,
you know,
It
discuss
would be
it
the
with John.
town's responsibility, no?
Perhaps, yeah.
probably, yeah.
It's their
They're gonna
lot.
link the lots, you know?
And they're gonna take away that angled parking.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And then the other big issue there is to close up the egress out into Montauk High. This is one of the last spots where you can actually exit onto Montauk Highway.
Yeah.
The other being right next door, the Chase Bank,
Yeah.
where I've seen cars go right through.
Yeah, no, it's 100%. So those will be great, other site
Yeah,
plan,
yeah, we'll-
requirements,
we'll-
that'll be good. The applicant's willing to do whatever here, the key is they want to get their market expanded. And look, it's a good use in the downtown, it's a busy store, there's
Yeah.
no question, there's a lot of
Yeah.
traffic in this area.
So it could be
Um,
managed better.
So we're not going to be able to get more parking on site, but we can manage
Manage
traffic
it.
circulation,
Right.
so.
That's the
And
key.
that's
gonna be the
That's
key.
That's
issue
it.
here.
Yeah.
Yep.
So this is incomplete?
So it's not,
I think?
it was incomplete previously, so you don't have to take an action on this.
No action.
No action.
No action.
Okay.
Yeah, pictures.
I have one more, number
Crescent?
11, Crescent.
Yeah.
Crest,
Crest.
you made correct.
I've been pronouncing the name incorrectly.
It's Crest, no Cressy.
That's right.
You saw them.
So the board might remember this application up on Bayview Drive.
I
And
was there on Sunday.
you were there, that's where
The one that's in the wall.
Gloria does her walk.
Yes.
So this was an application, you can see the property here, which is sitting, the house is sitting
Okay.
on the beach.
Yep.
And then the second lot in the back. The application, if you recall, was a lot line modification that will give some land to this property so they could bring the house back, and then make this lot smaller, and then to redevelop this new lot on the waterfront with a new residence. We did a lot of back and forth over the course of a year on this pre-application. The board might recall I sort of took a very hard line position and said, we'll do the lot line modification easy, but go to the Conservation Board for the wetlands permits. Unfortunately, that process isn't really permitted under the code. This board's doing the lot line change, so this board's doing the wetlands permits as part of that. So it's before the zoning board now because obviously they can't meet any zoning or wetland setbacks for that matter, given the constraints of the site, even with the additional land. So what I made the ZBA do was just coordinate in this case, only because this board's more familiar with the project. Interestingly, absent the lot line change, if this went just to the zoning board, it's a type 2 action. That would not be subject to secret, as a matter of fact. So, but nevertheless, we're doing the review here. I emailed the planning board.
Right, do you have any copies?
Yeah. Oh, cool. And actually, there attaches the part 2 and the part 3.
The part 2 is in here.
Yeah, the part two was in the packet, it was the part
Right.
three that wasn't, which had all the information.
Which has all the information, yeah. I did send that under a separate email, sorry.
You know, that's the one that I didn't see until today.
I know, you were saying you didn't get
Yeah.
your email until today. I will say, just so the board knows, last week driving home, I had a car fire on the LIE. This is true. So it really sort of messed up my week.
Your lithium battery went up?
No, yeah,
On your car? Or-
yeah. I mean, I had a lot of miles, and it was 2014 Chrysler, but it went up in flames on the LIE.
Oh, my
Whoa.
God.
Smoke and the flames. I got out of the car. I went back to the car to get my laptop, and I know. And then it just went up after that. And,
Whoa.
Because
Was it totally
Yeah,
You
yeah.
lost it
Oh, it's fine,
completely?
yeah.
and it was the battery that went off?
No, who knows? At
It
this
was,
stage.
it was.
It was a lithium battery.
No, it wasn't.
So it sort of messed up my week a little bit, so I lost some
Well,
time.
you saved your
Talk about
laptop.
exciting.
But I saved
life.
myself and my laptop. So
Get the laptop.
And your
the laptop.
registration and all
Company
that
man.
you grabbed, right?
I got nothing else out of the car beyond that.
He shouldn't have even gone back for his laptop.
It's
Did
true.
you take a picture?
Yeah, it's on my desk downstairs. It actually looks quite beautiful. Our sky is no, they can vouch for me. The sky is beautiful orange in the background. The sun is setting. The flames are coming out of the car. It actually looks it's a really nice picture, actually. Yeah, I'll send it to the board. It's great to look at.
Please send it to us.
I will. It came out great.
That could be your
We
thing,
lead
car
very
fire
uneventful
photography.
lives.
Like,
Our cars sort of explode on a regular
that
basis.
could be your thing, car fire photography.
That's perfect. There you go. It's $1 million idea. So the board is familiar with this project. Going through the part two, there was impacts on land. Obviously, any changes to this project or to the site would have an impact on land, but they would be small. On the second page, impacts on geological features. I had clicked yes there, but if you look at here, they're talking about unusual landform, cliffs, dunes, minerals, fossils, caves. That doesn't exist on here, so that's actually a no. Impacts on surface waters was also yes, and they would be small. And I'm going to go through my part three after I go through the part two. So I identified that as an issue. Impact on groundwater, no in this case. You have 2 existing single-family residences and 2 new ones going to be as a result with upgraded septic systems. So I think in this particular case, the impacts would be better than what's there.
Are they going to tear down the little one on the road? I thought that was,
It's off the table right now,
Okay.
but they ultimately are going to rebuild the property.
Okay.
They were trying to make this application process a little bit easier for themselves, so they took the second. And frankly, that's okay because now we'll go to the Environment Division, and this board doesn't have to do it. Impact on flooding, yes, this was obviously the big issue, so we'll go through that. Impact on air, no. Impacts on plants and animals, no. And it's acknowledged by the Conservation Board. This wetlands, while it's certainly part of a larger system of wetlands, is part that's been largely fragmented since the development, but they're more flooding wetlands, so to speak. In other words, they're not these intact, large areas of habitat. You know, they're sort of these fragmented, now altered drainage patterns. It's sort of a very unique.
There's a whole lot of reeds, and there's like almost, I don't know whether they're streams or they're mosquito ditches.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was there Sunday, and the skunk cabbage was growing.
No, see, there you go. Then impacts on ag resources, that's a no. Impact on aesthetic, no. Historical archaeological resources was no. Open space and recreation, no. Impact on critical environmental areas, again, yes, but small because it is a critical environmental area under the town's and DEC's regulations. Transportation, no. Energy, no. Noise, odor, and light, no. Human health, no. Consistent with community plans, it's 2 existing lots, so there's really no impact there. Consistent with community character, no impacts there. It's a residential development. So that was it. So going through my part 3, first paragraphs are just description about the projects and what the issues were, and then what information I used when looking at this. But as it relates to the impacts on lands, obviously there's going to be some impact, but I think those impacts would be, as it says there, be small and appropriately mitigated. The engineering requirements for this project must meet the design standards that pertain to subdivisions, road and drainage standards, and any other sections of the code that pertain to engineering and stormwater management. Plus, the stormwater is going to be retained on site, so that doesn't go into Bayview Drive with new drainage structures that don't exist currently. And all, by the way, subject to Tom Horton's review in this case, so that's going to happen. And it's going to be designed for a 3-inch rainfall event. And then the second part to that is that there's going to be the wetlands permit conditions. These are all the standard conditions that go in the wetlands permit. So leaders and gutters going into drainage structures, the use of impervious surfaces, the establishment of buffers to the maximum extent possible here. Those are all put in the wetlands permits as required. So I think with the standard requirements that those impacts will be mitigated. And impacts on surface waters, this is for the same reasons. Again, we have existing conditions, it is an existing residence, and I think, obviously ground disturbance here could alter flooding patterns, but the engineer did do the review initially and said, here's what needs to be done. So I think that with, again, the wetlands permit conditions and the engineering conditions, that the flooding impacts would be mitigated in this instance.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm sorry, surface water. So.
That particular piece of property, and then a bunch of them east of there, are not bulkheaded, but everything else around them are.
Yeah, and so there you go. And frankly, bulkheading as a matter of getting a permit to do it is not easy, regardless of what happens on either side.
But I think that's part of the reason why the house on the water is underwater.
Yeah, for sure.
Because of the bulkheads to its west.
Yep, absolutely. So the impacts on surface waters would be mitigated through the project design as required from the engineering conditions and the wetlands conditions. And same thing for the flooding and the critical environmental areas. The key to this project is the redesign. I think at the end of the day, on balance, bringing the house out of the water, getting a new upgraded septic system was probably going to be beneficial to the community.
And didn't they reduce the size of the house and the amenities?
Yes, the project that from what they initially started
yeah.
was reduced. So, the plan now does still call for the house and a swimming pool, but they've downsized everything from what they originally proposed. So that's where they came up with design. And I will say that what they're proposing before the zoning board is very consistent with what we looked at on a preliminary basis at the pre-application, and they've actually increased some of the wetland setbacks. I know that's hard to acknowledge when setbacks are 10 and 15 feet, but any setback increase is good. So I think the project, as it's been designed, would provide the proper mitigation in this case.
I mean, I have to say that I was really very much against the scope of the project initially, and I'm glad to see that it's been reduced to some extent.
Yeah.
And I mentioned this the last time we talked, that there's a house, there was a little house that I never even knew existed on something called Beach Road, which I didn't even think was a road. What is being built there now is humongously bigger than what this application is.
Yeah.
I think it's something like 7 bedrooms and 8 bathrooms, a multi-level decks, an outdoor kitchen. I mean,
Yeah.
I was aghast when I saw the scope and the amount of concrete that they've put in there.
You're looking at it.
Wayne's shaking his head.
Yeah. You look at a 2,000 square foot house here with no other real amenities except the pool. So they've whittled it down, I think, to be reasonable to the applicant who's going through the expense
Yeah.
of.
And they're gonna have this thing towering above them, next door.
Yeah, right next door.
Are the wetlands permits online? An actual permit to see what's required? Is that
Yeah,
online?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
under,
It's under the Environment Division, so their forms and applications on their page has all that
so
information.
it's not on 330 at all? No,
No, it's under 325,
325?
Chapter 325. So with that, I would recommend then issuance of a neg deck in this case. You guys, she was just reading something.
So does the house have to be elevated by how many feet now for new construction?
Yeah, it's gonna be flood compliant, FEMA compliant, so,
It's elevated now.
yeah.
It is.
It's up on a bluff, isn't it?
What's that?
No.
Oh, no, it's not. No, that's
No,
5 feet.
they raised it when it went underwater.
Let's put it this way, they're certainly within the zoning requirements, because they're before the zoning board right now, not asking for any relief for that, so.
Yeah, you could walk under the
Yeah.
floor of the house right now.
So they're at the ZBA for setback relief,
Setback relief, yeah.
only?
Only because this board is the wetlands board, so you establish the wetland setbacks in here. So we're going to
Wayne, do
recommend.
you- Comes Wayne.
Just one comment, Wayne Bruin, Old Shademore, Simpson Bruin for the applicants. It's but because this project involves the lot line transfer that totally takes it out. If we had two single and separate lots, we had the 3/10, 4/10 relief and so on and so forth, but because the front lot, there's no room to really move that back in any meaningful way. And it's but for this transfer that allows us to move that construction back. And because of the transfer, as Anthony says, changes it from a seeker standpoint, changes it from the fact that they're not single and separate lots anymore, and therefore every setback that doesn't comply, we need relief on.
Right.
So it may sound like a lot of variances, but when you compare to what's existing and what's proposed and what we would have been eligible for, if they were single and separate lots, the relief is not significant at all. So I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so we're
So I'm
adopting a
recommending,
neg
neg
deck,
deck.
is that what we're doing?
Yep.
So, motion
Motion.
by Gloria, second by
Second.
Craig, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 6 in favor, 1 absent.
Incomplete?
No, because they're before the zoning board right now.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And so
So
Mike?
Claire, you've got a
Yeah.
wireless towers in the cemetery, is that,
Uh,
or are you going
Homeland
back? No, no,
Towers,
Homeland Towers,
Flanders.
Flanders.
Flanders, yeah,
Oh,
that's
Lord.
page 30.
Is this the one in the junkyard?
Yeah.
Oh,
This is the junkyard.
it's unbelievable.
Yes, this is the site plan they've provided.
Oh, yeah.
It shows it overlaid on the aerial where the junkyard with very minimal. So the aerial's here
So
too.
Claire, how
That's
can we
here.
even entertain this?
Well, it's
about
pre-submission.
it.
They've submitted a basic application, which is required under pre-submission. They've submitted alternatives. But in the face of it, I have relayed to him that it does not meet the code. There's a house here, right here, there's a house here. It's 155 feet tall, so that would be 450 feet away from a residence,
Yeah, it's not.
property. So there's a lot of aspects here that doesn't conform. It's in the core preservation,
Right.
even though it's a developed piece of property. One use per zone. I'm sorry, Charles, I believe there might have been someone on Zoom for this.
No one on Zoom.
Okay. They may have had somebody from Zoom, but they knew this was gonna be on. But they've said they'd like to proceed. They know that there's a lot of issues, and we're gonna outline those in the pre-submission report.
So this junkyard that's in the core, Pine Barrens core, with junk cars and oil and everything that might be polluting, has there ever been any sighting of them or
No,
DEC?
you've had no site plan on it. Oh, you said citing like for
Yes.
violations?
Yes, yes.
No, it is, as far as I can see, and I've done some research preliminarily into it, it is a CO'd use, a use that was granted permission by the zoning board of appeals, and it has a certificate of occupancy
Way
for the
back?
use. Way back
The
when.
70s? Yeah.
No, not, more recent than that.
Oh.
It was probably established way back.
Yeah, I
And
think
then they-
initially it did, and then it's got a CO for the use, on the property. And so every year there's, every 2 years, there's a junkyard permit that the town issues for these facilities, because we do want to know what's how they're doing, making sure that they're not having, engines with oil leaking and things like that. So it's regularly inspected.
And who does that?
The fire marshal.
The fire marshal. So is there a way for us to flag that? I mean, this is in the Pine Barrens core area. It concerns me in our groundwater.
Mm-hmm.
Anything we can do? Council, is there anything we could do?
Well, if they see anything in violation, they have a duty to report that, and obviously then we wouldn't issue them a junk permit. But I mean, they are before you right now, so that's gonna have a secret component to it, should
Mhm.
they,
if they proceed, it's gonna, you're gonna want an environmental assessment on the
Absolutely.
property, I would imagine, so. This would be to set the pre-submission process on this. Go ahead.
Now, the applicant is not the owner of the junkyard.
No, the applicant is the Homeland Towers, and they have permission from the owner of the junkyard to make the application, yes.
It's really amazing to look at that.
It's,
Just
it's
amazing.
kind of sort of obscene.
It's awful.
Yeah, exactly.
And the cell tower is like the icing on the cake.
And where exactly are they proposing to put the cell tower?
Right in
Towards the
corner.
front,
Oh.
so the visual impact is there also,
By the road.
Yeah,
by the road.
full zone on the road. What
Yeah.
is that road, sir?
Flanders.
Flanders,
Yeah.
Flanders Road. There is a cell tower now on Flanders Road, it's at the,
The fire district.
by the fire district, yeah.
Remember doing that.
I think it's about a mile, but I don't know, we'll obviously track
Right,
that,
Just past Pleasure Drive.
yeah.
All right, Claire, what are you thinking of for the?
Yeah, so I
in
have,
March?
I have March 23rd if there's availability. How many are on the agenda?
You have 625 Butter Lane on that day, so they were moving things over to April 13th.
Oh, did you, is there only one thing on there?
There's two, but Jackie had mentioned last meeting, because 625 is gonna be.
Yeah,
Okay, so you wanna do the April 13th?
yeah, we'll do April, what is it?
13th?
13. Okay, motion to set the pre-submission for April 13?
Motion.
Motion by Gloria and second by Craig, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? 6 in favor, 1 absent.
And my number 12 is off the agenda.
The wireless cemetery. Yeah. We're gonna be early.
And I think it's just Jeff, right? Not just Jeff, it's Jeff.
Jeff,
Last but not least.
We saved the best for last.
There you go.
do you know, before we start, is Janice working on any kind of legislation to have the re-veg plans done?
I don't have any updates on
administratively?
that yet. Claire, I don't know if you have any updates on
I
that.
guess we'll talk about it on Monday at the staff meeting.
What time is it, Claire? Is it 11?
11.
It's 11, okay, thank you.
They're not coming through as at a high volume as they were before, so that's a good thing. But this particular application, entitled Julia Reed and Cornelia Reed, Lot 2, 688 Bridgehampton, Sac Harbor Turnpike. This is a 2-lot subdivision. We had spoken about earlier. The applicant had requested some type of bond so that they can proceed with their transaction, sale of the property. But we advise them that they should submit the application for site disturbance, and we'll do our best to get them on the next available agenda. We do have this application that seeks to restore 50% of overcleared natural vegetation.
Do you have the map or visual?
There you go. The developer, as you can see, is building on both the front and rear lots. Obviously, clearing issues off the front lot are pretty evident. They are seeking essentially to restore 50%, which equals 20,027 square feet in natural vegetation. They submitted this application here, and this planting plan. Let me see if I can make it bigger for you.
Jeff,
Yes.
we're only looking at one of these lots right now?
Just the one lot,
Which
just the
one?
front lot.
The front lot?
What's the status of the rear lot?
No status as of yet. It looks to be in compliance as the limitations are 50%.
The rear
In
lot?
clearing?
Oh, I see that. Yeah,
Correct.
those-
This flag lot here is the rear lot.
Yeah.
So this is the
Yeah.
application here for this front lot. Same builder though, but this front lot's the one that the issues were pretty evident.
I mean, the rear lot doesn't look in compliance to me. I'm seeing an awful lot of sand.
No,
But you
there's
know,
that
you
whole
see
rear
the
section,
line
that
goes
whole
all
This
the
whole
way
area.
back
Oh,
piece
oh,
right here.
sorry,
That's
I
all
didn't-
I missed that too,
included, yeah.
Lori.
Yeah,
I know it is kind of hard to tell.
Yeah.
Because he started the project all together at the same time.
But yeah, this seems to be on point. We'll know one way or another when they go for a CO. They're going to have to supply the building department with a up-to-date survey showing that they are in compliance. But they weren't able to do so on the front lot at 688. The planting plan does bring them into compliance when executed. Actually went through this planting plan a couple times to remove some non-native plantings. But this new reinforced or robust planting plan should bring this property into compliance for the 50% allowable clearing.
They mentioned they wanted to do a bond.
Well, initially, I think I posed this question to the board. That was the initial request. The buyer of the lot, their mortgage commitment was expiring, and with the time frame for them to compile a proper application, be seen before the board, and then execute the actual planting, it wouldn't have been in time. So I'm not sure what they did, but we advised them to find an alternative option. Because we've done, I think, one in the past, and it didn't really turn out right. I think it's still an open bond out there
We
for.
don't take, the reason we don't take bonds on private lots is it's just, they would just walk away from the practicalities of the town going into enforced compliance with the work. Really, you have gates, you have private residences. It's not like a site plan on the side of the road where the town can contract a landscaper and here, go plant these bushes, and
I agree.
it's just impractical, and especially the nature of the environment, people would just write a check,
Oh, yeah.
post a bond, and
Yeah,
walk away.
unless you took a bond for many times the
Yeah.
value of the road.
The good news is that we have a very mild winter. I think I've seen the landscapers planting all the way through.
Oh, yeah. Initially, at the beginning of the season, we advised folks kind of wait until spring.
Yeah.
But we're getting
Spring's
60
here.
weather, 50-degree here.
Winter never
you know.
came, it went from fall to spring.
We might make
4
it
days of
through.
winter.
Yeah, 4 weeks to go, yeah.
Yeah.
We got one more day of winter coming on Saturday.
Yeah, we might make it through without
From your
any
mouth to
substantial
God's
snow.
ears, that we don't get smacked in March.
Oh, no, track the weather.
So they're now, so what are they, they're not requesting a bond?
No,
What are they?
no, not at all.
They're going,
They want to do.
Absolutely. We advise them to submit the application. We'll work with them in terms of timing so we can move this along for them. But no, the bond wasn't it. It was not going to be an option, unfortunately.
With a plan like that, how do you verify that it's actually 50%? Do they get a
They
proper
have to get a
survey at the end
survey.
of it?
Right, so we have a survey that gives us calculations. We won't definitively know until the
Okay,
process
that's
is complete,
that's
yeah.
And you go out and check.
I go out and check, and then I
Survey,
have,
they have to update their survey, right?
absolutely. So as a condition of the approval, I include in our resos that you provide me with an as-built survey after the planting plan is complete.
Yeah,
With
that's
proper
good.
calculations. All right, so,
Good.
considering this to be approved,
Okay, so motion to
Motion.
approve. Motion by Dennis, second by
Second.
George, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 6 in favor, 1 absent.
all right,
That's it.
that's it.
Can we move straight to the public hearing now?
Right, motion to adjourn. Motion by Dennis, second by Craig, all in favor. Opposed, abstentions. Christine, do you need to talk to us at all?
Would you like to move, you want to go back and open and move into exec?
Yeah, you want to do it next time? Yeah, just about to
Absolutely.
clean it all up.
Sure.
So, reconvening into executive session, please, so,
We'll let Charles know.
Make a motion to go into exec.
yes, make a motion by Dennis, second
Second.
by Gloria, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 6 in favor, 1 absent, we are in executive session.